Pope Francis has been extending holiday greetings from the Vatican, and he now has a special message for those fleeing from ISIS. The Pope penning a letter to Christians in the Middle East, encouraging them to not be afraid or ashamed to be a Christian, despite the persecution they have been facing from terrorist groups. Joining me now from Dallas, Dr. Robert Jeffress, pastor of the First Baptist Church and a Fox News contributor. Dr. Jeffress, persecutions of Christians isn't anything new. It's been going back for thousands of years, but you hear these stories about what's happening from ISIS, beheadings, rapes, sexual torture, these kinds of things. Is this worse than we've ever seen it, or is it just worse because we now know about it?
No, I think it is worse than it's ever been. You know, an interesting fact is there were more martyrs for the Christian faith in the 20th century than all the other centuries combined. And this war against Christianity really began 2,000 years ago when Herod tried to kill Jesus by slaughtering all of the Jewish males under the age of 2. But here's the paradox of history, and that is the more Christianity is attacked, the more it spreads. I mean, look at what's happening in Red China today. 72 million Christians, and it's growing exponentially. I mean, Tertullian, the early church father, said, "The blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church." The fact is, the more Christianity is pressed, the more it expands.
Speaking of that, what does Scripture tell us about Christians who are persecuted and how to deal with that situation? Obviously, Christmas is a joyous time. At the same time, so many are under threat.
Well, I think there's a lot of confusion about this, and we've talked about this in recent days on Fox. You know, as individuals, we're told to forgive and to turn the other cheek in personal offenses, but government is never told to forgive or turn the other cheek. And the fact is, Romans 13 says government has the job to go after and avenge evildoers, and as a nation, we have every right and responsibility to push back against the attacks of ISIS.
And when you say push back, you mean by that you mean use military force in terms of trying to protect Christians, Yazidis, these kinds of things?
Absolutely. That is the role of government, and that is to be an avenger of evildoers, Paul said in Romans chapter 13. And you know, there's one thing I'd like to say about this Pope's letter, which is great. He said that the Christmas carols of these persecuted Christians will be accompanied by tears and sighs. And that's true, but they will also be accompanied by hope. Hope that you find in the carols themselves. You know, that most familiar carol, "Joy to the World, the Lord is Come," was not written about the first coming of Christ, but about the second coming, when He will rule the world in truth and grace. And the good news of Christmas is that even though we live in a broken world and there is no peace on earth right now, that will change one day when Christ returns and rules in perfect justice and righteousness. That is good news, not just for these persecuted Christians in the Middle East, but for all people.
Well, good news and certainly a hopeful message here on this Christmas Eve amidst so much bad news. Dr. Jeffress, thanks for joining us, sir. Merry Christmas to you and yours.
Merry Christmas to you. Thanks.
All the best, sir.